me. I love how busy the chat has been. Tony Barry, one of my Story Farm writers, thank you for texting me and letting me know that people are waiting. There was a little mix-up with what link to share to everybody who registered, and we're here. How about that? This is not that big of a deal. And we're just going to go with it. We're 10 minutes late. I apologize, everybody. But we're here and all is well. I think I might just get right into it, but I love seeing a lot of familiar names. Hello, Marion, Simon and Mark and Will, some new names I haven't seen. Darshana, good to see you. Let's see here. Tony, of course. Diane, Sing Dancing. I love the name Sing. I think we all should sing dance a little bit more often. Hello from Southern Oregon. I am currently in the state of Wisconsin. My name is Max Timm. If you don't know who I am, I assume you do. But I'm the Director of Education with the International Screenwriters Association. I'm also a consultant with my own company called The Story Farm. Robert, good to see you. I'm also the VP of Development with our production company called Creative Screenwriter Productions. I don't know if I need to go into a long bio, everybody. I'm assuming most of you know who I am. I've been doing this for a long time. It's been a little bit since we've done a live event, so I'm excited to do this. This will exist. The recording will exist on YouTube, on the ISA's YouTube channel, shortly after we're done here. So if you do need to check out, you can't stay for the whole time, totally fine. You'll be able to watch the whole rundown here. But in terms of the title, as far as what we're going to be talking about, this is the first time I'm covering something like this, how to get noticed in an evolving industry. Kind of, pretty little title that we threw out there. But how to get noticed is really why all of you are here. What do I do to get noticed? First of all, you're here. This is one step. I'm seeing all your names. Everybody else is seeing your names. Joining events like this is a nice way to get noticed. Now, I understand that your get noticed, quote unquote, is really, how do I make a lot of money doing this? How do I have an agent pick me up? How do I get represented by a manager? What can I do to get my scripts out there? I'm going to go through a lot of different topics and a lot of different ways you can do that. I'm going to be straightforward with all of you. I am usually covering the educational, craft-focused stuff, the teacher stuff. How do you structure things? Character development. When do you use parentheticals? Like all the page writing things, and of course conceptual development. That's kind of my wheelhouse. However, because I've been working for so long with writers in this particular, avenue, format, one-on-one in the educational portion of just the screenwriting industry, but also for the past 6-7 years, I've been pitching material like crazy, and I've also been a writer myself for about 20 plus years. So I have direct experience with a lot of this. I just don't talk about it as often as I probably should, or as some of you might expect. And the main reason is because the first way to get noticed, and you're all going to groan and roll your eyes and like, screw this, I'm out. I hope you don't do that. You have to write a lot of screenplays. It's the number one thing. I'm not going to hit you over the head with that one. You probably all already know this, but we cannot rely on 1 or 2 scripts to make a career. Really, in some ways, you can't quite rely on 1 or 2 scripts to just sell it. Like if you're a hobbyist, which is fine if you are, and you just kind of want to write a screenplay and get it out there. It's possible to do that. It's difficult because no one knows you. And that would be really the number 2 level of priority here. And as far as allowing people to know your name, know who you are. And I'm going to bring up some notes that I want to cover here. I won't be able to see everybody's comments and stuff, but I would love for all of you to ask questions. Scott is helping me produce behind the scenes here, and he'll be highlighting some of those questions and saving them for later. This is probably going to be a very heavy Q&A webinar that I'm hosting. On that note, by the way, I host these webinars every month for the ISA. And I think I took last month off because of the ISA's 30-day screenwriting challenge, where I was hosting office hours every day. So I was basically hosting a webinar every day. And what made the 30-day challenge so great was just how active everybody was within those office hour sessions, coming on with the live Zoom, asking questions, being part of the conversation. I remember all of those people's names. I'm not some mover and shaker necessarily in the industry. I know a lot of people just because I've been working in the business for a while. I'm going to remember your names. Robert has been he has been very, very active in terms of the questions, and then how he was participating in 30-day challenge, and he was posting questions and comments in the coursework itself. It's a way to get noticed. Be the squeaky wheel. Now, I'm not saying that Robert was an annoying squeaky wheel. I love chatting with him and all the other writers within the office hours. But nonetheless, I do this every month. And today we're going to do something a little different in terms of how to get noticed. First, I want to get into just some realities of the industry landscape today. And it's important for all of us to know these things. And what I'm going to be talking about is going to be very far from, insider information. I'm learning information as easily as all of you could, just by way of the trades: Hollywood Reporter, Deadline.com, Variety, all the other just news outlets. We need to be staying up to date with all that stuff. We have it in the morning. If you've got a little extra time, sit down, read some articles about just what's the news for today. Or, once or twice a week, go to Deadline.com, Variety, wherever, and read some prior news articles. We have to be keeping up to date. And the reason for that is it kind of connects to this idea of meet people and being social and letting people know who you are, so that you can have intelligent conversations, so that you understand what's going on in the industry. We need to be staying up to date. So with that said, I'm sure most of you have been hearing a huge contraction in the industry right now, primarily on the TV side. It is being felt on the film side. And from an economic standpoint, the industry itself has had a huge slowdown over the past year and a half, mainly because of the strikes, which were necessary. And so that isn't a complaint. They knew that was going to happen. I think they, as in the producers, let the strikes go on much longer than necessary, but I understand what they were trying to do, seeing both sides. But because of that, there was this huge backlog of material that was not being produced. And so that then, once the strike ended, kind of had this like rush process to work on that material that was promised releases and get that out. So there was no focus on accepting new material or developing new material or taking on new writers or creating new writers' rooms, because they had to catch up. With that, then, they were quickly seeing, and they were forecasting, a tremendous amount of money being lost, because they weren't able to then get advertising and all this other stuff, and streamers, and we're losing money, blah, blah, blah. And so that all put together, just those two things, the strike and then the economic just kind of backlash, so-called, of not being able to get new content out, was enough for the studios to go, wait a minute, we need to be looking at our books a lot better. So that then reduced the amount of material that's going to be produced and created. We're all aware of this. It's not, in some ways, I'm not even looking at it negatively. It just is. It's difficult from a production standpoint because there are a lot of people out of work, a ton of production employees, from craft services to lighting services to development organizations within various studios and production companies. So many people are being laid off. It's scary. It's scary also because the studios are slashing development departments. Development meaning creative executives who are looking for new material and then spending time working with those writers to develop that material and then hopefully get that material produced. That then has resulted in studios, because they've been seeing this, they forecasted this a while ago, they've been focusing on sequels, things that don't need a lot of development, projects that we won't need to pour money into in terms of the development process that may not do anything. They're looking for sure bets. It's why sequels were so huge. It's why they've been trying to push all of these comic book sequels in that whole series. It all makes sense. However, it's not working. So through that, there has been a really big push throughout the industry, and really more, I don't know about push, but a lot of very positive kind of rumors and statements being made that the independent film world is on an uptick. But mainly because there's an outcry for original content, a really big outcry, and it's making waves. People are noticing. I strongly believe that by the time we get into February, March, April, we're going to be seeing a lot of new independent projects on a lower budget from a film standpoint being produced, which I think is very positive, and it could help with a little bit of that level of upswing to bring the market back. From a TV standpoint, I did hear from one of my longtime friends and mentors, Tanya Bhattacharya. She's an executive producer on a ton of TV shows. She was one of my first screenwriting coaches, and she runs scriptanatomy.com, which you all should look at if you're looking to get into TV and really learn the craft of television. Script Anatomy is really, I think, the best TV organized or TV approaching type of organization. But she was saying that there's a lot of word on the street about writers' rooms coming back. People are looking to fill those rooms again. They're trying to get ahead of the new year, and she said by the time end of January and February rolls around, writer rooms will be filled again. So I think thank you, Scott. He posted scriptanatomy.com. We don't see any kind of financial gain from promoting Script Anatomy. We just love Tanya, and you should all look at it. But things are coming back around, and so I wanted to start out with all that negative shit about things aren't working, people are losing their jobs, and the economy of Hollywood is falling and it's crashing. All this stuff, you're going to hear it all day, every day on Instagram and TikTok and the news. It's coming back. We need to just kind of relax. For us who are kind of either on the verge, we may have had a script or two produced, or we've made our own movies, or we're still trying to get our stuff out there. You've probably heard it before. Now is a perfect time for you to be focusing on developing as much material as you possibly can. It's going to take you some time to develop that, and not just one script, but multiple. Get a storage room filled of screenplays and projects finished, so that when the industry does kind of pop back up and it balances back out, they're going to be wanting to hear from you. Now, I've also heard looking at my notes. So yeah, the reality, never has the world wanted more content this badly. Now, that's not just in the TV world or the feature space. It's in general. The very small screen, your phones, huge, massive. Video game industry, massive. Great question, Will, and Scott can highlight that one, and I'll get that one later. 20 would be a lot and amazing, but I'll get to that later. But the very small screen is huge. And who creates these things? It's not just AI. AI is very real. It's happening. It's not going to happen. It's happening. It's a part of the industry, whether we like it or not. We don't need to use it, and I hope anyway, to write entire screenplays. Right now, there's still a lot of kind of negative connotations with AI, going around the industry. But nonetheless, the industry is always going to need real human beings creating material in some form, not only and always for TV and film. I think a huge outlet for all of us to be considering is that small screen, the shorter formats, even short films, creating this to help produce or at least get yourself noticed. Look what I can do. I'll get into all these other things in terms of what you can do. But I just read recently, Chick-fil-A is starting a streaming service. I'm not even kidding. They're spending about $400,000 to develop additional scripts for new content. Kroger, the grocery store chain, is offering Disney streaming options for their members. Walmart's partnering with Paramount Streaming for its members. It's very likely that Walmart's going to begin its own streaming service in some way in order to be able to compete with Amazon. That's a huge concern for Walmart. Instacart is working directly with Peacock. DoorDash is partnering with HBO Max. It doesn't necessarily mean all of those organizations are going to create their own content, but they probably will. Most of them probably will. So the content is needed, right? I mean, we have to be creating content. I hate that word. I shouldn't use that content or the word content, because we do more than just create content. We are creating stories, and so the reality is that the industry is not going away, and we need to remember that it's an industry that needs stories, not just writers. They do, They're going to try to use AI to create stories. Most of them will suck. And, all of them, though, will need writers to further develop and evolve those stories. So we just need to, right now anyway, before we get into this, I kind of lean forward idea of the topic, how do I get noticed? Let's just take a second, Let's just, because I have a lot of very snarky and cynical answers to that question. How do I get noticed? And I don't want to go there. I don't mean for them to be snarky and cynical. They can just come across that way because they seem flippant, but they're not. They're real. And every consultant, every executive, every agent, every manager would say, write a great screenplay. Write as many screenplays as you can. Win contests. Everybody says the same thing, right? We all know that. Those are ways to get noticed. But the main one, and we just have to be creating material all the time, as much as possible, and not just for TV and not just for features. The one little note before I get into steps to take to get noticed is that the gaming industry, like I said, is massive. I've been trying to utilize LinkedIn a little bit more for my own services, but also to help promote the ISA. But I look at the jobs section more than just every now and then, just to see what's out there, like who's hiring. There is a ton of hiring going on. It's actually kind of eye-popping. Not everything is within the screenwriting section of the industry, but there is hiring going on, and it's a little notable when you start seeing who are they looking to hire. The gaming industry, every time I go on there, which is 2, 3, 4 times a week, I always see some kind of new writing job in the gaming industry in some form, whether you're actually writing stories for various games or characters, or bloggers. They're looking for a marketing department and people to work and write about gaming. And there is work out there. There really is. And so I think we need to have that positive mentality while staying as patient as possible. I can't stress the patience enough because I know we're all eager. Right now is a perfect time to practice patience if we're not full-time writers right now. If we're writers who are trying to develop material and develop our career, this is a great time for us because we can take our time. There's no rush to get something out. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of comments. Let me just see what we've got here. A lot that Scott has saved, which is great. Let's see. Will hates the word content also. Let's see. Will is saying, but Max, I've been told again and again and again, no one, producers, managers, etc., couldn't give a flying fig about your placements and competitions and fellowships. I'm going to just outright disagree with you, Will, as well as those people that tell you they don't give a flying fig. Not everyone does. It's not that every single agent, every single manager, every single producer cares about those placements. But as a really great example, one of my writers, her name's Lynn. I don't know if Lynn's with us, but she's been working with me one-on-one for almost 6 years now. And we've written, I think she would be able to tell me, I think it's either 7 or 9 projects over the course of that 5 or 6 years. She had very little screenwriting experience when she started. She had a lot of writing experience, but she hadn't quite transitioned to screenwriting. So we did a lot of development, and she recently placed as a semifinalist in Nickel. Nickel is pretty much the top echelon. And she, without being a finalist or a fellow, has received outreach asking her, can you tell me more about yourself, more about your script? So that happens. Nickel is one of them. And I do have a little bit of a portion of what I'm going to talk about in terms of how to get noticed. But also through the ISA, all of you, I'm assuming, are ISA members, whether you're a basic member or a Connect member. I think this is for Connect members only. I can't remember. No, that's right. There's a little bit of both. Your ISA profile is stalked by ISA employees. I promise. We are always looking for new material, new writers, but we're looking for the writers who have shown that they've been doing this for a while, that they have a lot of projects that they've been creating and developing. Of course, quality of writing in the pitch, but also what have you done in terms of placements? This is an old story, but I remember when we were first starting the development slate, in the development program with the ISA, I was looking for writers who have gained a decent amount of success, but haven't quite, taken that leap. And there was one writer over the course of maybe 3 or 4 months. He kept posting success stories to his profile because he was winning contests. Now, they were tiny contests that I've never heard of. But after a while, he had like 40 plus wins for this one script. And so I was like, all right, I've never heard of most of these screenplay contests, but I have to read the screenplay. And so I reached out, I requested him. I read the script. The script needed a lot of development, but the idea was phenomenal. We got him in front of a couple of different producing-oriented production companies and things around town. One of them almost had full funding ready to go after a while, and he had deals ready. Like, it moved into the point of that movie almost getting made. And it was because I found him on our ISA website, because he was posting all of these success stories, all of which were contest wins. So, Will, I'm not picking on you. Will saying, Max, I believe hugely in my placements and competitions and fellowships. And you absolutely should, even just for validation. It's so huge, everybody. There was one of my writers, Lindsay. I don't know if Lindsay's on, but she got top 4 in a specific, I think it was like a Hispanic Latino screenplay competition. And it was, I don't know if people are going to reach out to her because she got that placement, but it's incredibly validating for her. She's been doing this for a while. And we all should be very, very proud of the accomplishments that we make, because, what we're doing here as writers, so, sorry to swear, but fucking hell, man. It is really hard. It's supposed to be hard, so it's not a complaint. But even just the process of writing is difficult, much less than trying to let people know you've written something. I wrote a book years ago, and I'm trying to finish the second one. And I sent so many, it was a novel for the young adult audience, so many different query letters to agents, over 30, they all passed. And I just decided, screw it, I'm going to publish this thing as myself, a self-published book. And I had a ton of fun doing it. It helped me develop the book more because I was thinking about the audience. I ran a Kickstarter campaign, which actually got quite a bit of traction. I had a lot of people who were interested. I gained twice as much as I was asking for to help with the first release. Through that, I then ended up winning the young adult category at the LA Book Festival. That ended up landing me a public publishing deal. Those people ended up going out of business. But throughout all of this, I kept working, I kept writing, I kept teaching and consulting writers. But then through that, the ISA eventually, our production company, ended up getting an agent, and I developed that book as a TV series. The agent took it out. I pitched that TV series to well over 10 different production companies. I think it's upwards to like 15 or 16. Sony almost took it on just a couple months ago. It was like a weird bummer. Because obviously they passed on it, but they sat on it for about 4 months, like passing it throughout the whole studio. Like, is this is something real? Should we do this? And they finally decided that it wasn't quite their brand, because it's fantasy. It's about fairies and wishes and things. And they said that was kind of the final decision, but they loved me. And long story short, everybody, I'm not talking about just myself all the time. Will is posting, a great question and really solid comment. A lot of people in the industry don't actually care about screenplay competitions, but a lot do. And so it's just another avenue. We can't rely on screenplay competitions as the only way to get noticed. We have to have a list of like 15 different ways, to how can I let people know I exist, and I honestly, like, I'm going to kind of lessen my level of importance here for a second. This is Googleable. You can Google all this. I'm here to give a little bit more of a personal, commentary on it. But this is all stuff that we can learn how to do. So the first one thing, and I'm seeing all these great questions and comments, everybody. I promise I'll get to the questions. But the first one is kind of going back to that first snarky response that I gave. Write everything and anything wherever and whenever you can. Not just, I'm a horror writer, so I need to write horror movies only. I hate to say it, but that the industry just doesn't work that way anymore. It's because it's so spread out, and it's because of the way people consume content. So you have to find ways to, if you're a horror writer, you have to find ways to write for horror publications, horror blogs, create some fun TikTok videos, create Instagram stories, build your social audience. And honestly, everybody, it's a lot of fun to do. It really is, just to kind of get yourself out there. Look what I'm doing. Writers, we can tend to be introverts, which is fine. We can be introverts, but we also kind of have to be able to lean into being an extrovert and being non-humble and showing off and letting people know that this is what I do and I like it and it's fun. And here's what I'm attempting to achieve. People want to help, like I'll get there in a second, but a little bit of a number two, I guess, but a great story and a great idea is going to get noticed. It just is. I will say about my young adult fantasy novel, it's a great idea. I'm not, if you want to think I'm cocky, I don't care. It's a really great idea. It still hasn't been produced yet. And there are a whole host of reasons. It's extremely expensive. It's a Harry Potter universe type of, build. We're going for, the animation route. It's not cheap. There's blah, 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 but it's a great idea. It got noticed. If you have a great idea, if you believe in your idea, people are going to notice it. From there, then, number three, you have to join screenwriting communities, forums, writing groups, classes, as much as you can. Of course, some of them cost money. One of the last little notes that I gave in my list here, this goes across the board, everybody. You cannot be afraid to invest in yourself and your career. Even if the only thing you can afford is time. You're all here spending your time hearing what I have to say, whether you agree with it or whether you think this is going to be worthwhile. There's only so much control I have over that. But you're here and you're spending that time. So, you're already a step above the people who are just talking about being a screenwriter. So, bravo to that. In terms of being a part of communities, there are so many different social communities, and you can Google, Story Farm forums, or I'm sorry, there's a little Freudian slip. I have a community. I was going to mention that, but screenwriting forums, screenwriting communities. Most of the screenwriting organizations out there have some form of a community. The ISA is launching one very, very soon. It's going to be on the same platform as my community, which is going to be helpful. And I'll show what that looks like in a little bit. But it's a great way for especially ISA members, but also members of larger organizations to talk to each other, get to know each other. And who knows, you might be able to form groups. And this is one thing the ISA is going to be trying to do with our Third Thursdays groups, because we have a lot of different members in various cities who host their own writing groups and writing events, like Madison and Portland and a whole bunch of different cities. And it's a way for them to all get together in one platform. We just have to network with fellow writers. We can't only think about the people that are the gatekeepers, because the people we're working with, they want to help us just as much as you want to help them. And they're going through the same thing. So huge benefit for joining communities, forums, writing groups, and paying for classes. It's not just for educational reasons to take a class. A lot of people in the 30-day challenge. I had a writing retreat last month at the end of September. And so I took 5 days off of hosting the office hours during the 30-day challenge. And one of the writers said, hey, I'll host a Zoom meetup. For those of you, during these days when we don't have office hours, you all can join. And so people were getting to know each other. They were making friends. And even if it's just text friends and they're not actually meeting up in person, I can't stress how important that is enough. Now, contests like we were talking about, they're still a very big deal. They're still really important. The higher echelon contests are now that much more important because there are so many other smaller to medium-sized contests. So the ones that have names, and all of them, those are the ones to be focused on. But I do want to share my link because the Writers Guild Foundation has a really great list. And I'm going to scroll through some of these because I made a note as I was preparing for this. The studio fellowships are still around and they're still very powerful. So studio fellowships are almost all of them are free. And I'm trying to think, Scott, let's hope I can actually share my screen here. Let's see what I can do with as many technical difficulties as we have had. Let's see. Okay, cool. So hopefully you all can see that. It takes me, okay, good. Yeah, cool. So fellowship programs for screenwriters. The Writers Guild Foundation is a fantastic organization. You should all at least be aware of it. They have programs that they host. And if you're in LA, they have events in Los Angeles. I'm not sure if they have out-of-state events as well. But it's fantastic. Nonetheless, this is a list of primarily fellowships and programs, not just screenplay contests. Obviously, the top two, we've got, I think they might be going in alphabetical, but these are two of the biggest. Nickel, Austin Film Festival. Pretty obvious. Blacklist, Women in Film Episodic Lab, Coalition of Asian Pacific. I'm not going to go through all these because there's a ton of them. But most of the studios, the Disney Entertainment TV Writing Program, they're, I think, pretty much free. And if you can get in there into any of those studio fellowships, it's a huge deal. They help you get work. They get you into a writer's room, and they pay you. So definitely pay attention to the fellowships. Final Draft Big Break is one of the big ones. 1497 is, I think, relatively new, but it's run by, oh gosh, I can't remember who, but 1497 Features Lab is awesome. Fox Entertainment Writers Incubator, Humanitas New Voices. Hey, look at that. ISA Fast Track Fellowship. Thanks, Writers Guild Foundation. Diversity Initiative is there too. So anyway, there's a long list here, everybody. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just these are the ones you really should be aware of. They're the top ones. They're the most notable ones. They come with names. The Nickelodeon Writing Program is fantastic. Ohala Ignition Lab. I have not heard of that one. Anyway, I think you get the point. But what we want to be thinking in terms of the smaller, medium, like mid-size. Oh, Scott, hopefully you were all able to see that, because Scott was saying, Max, if you make that window thinner, it should fill the screen better. Nonetheless, everybody, there wasn't that much you needed to read. I was just giving you an example of here. Go to the Writers Guild Foundation. You can Google it, screenwriting, fellowships, and there's a list of the top ones, the ones that the industry will pay attention to. The smaller, medium-sized contests, those are for you to test material. You've got a couple drafts done of a script. I kind of want to see it. Okay, good. I'm seeing Moonlight Arts and Tim are saying that they saw it. Cool. If you've got a couple drafts done for a script, you think it's okay. You've got some notes and you've maybe done one revision. The smaller, medium-sized contests are a great way to test that material because they're usually less expensive. You can get notes for a lot less than you would have to pay someone like me. Just the truth. And it's a nice way to test the material, because if you start getting into the semifinals of some of these smaller contests on a relatively new script, not only will that contest remember your name, you can put it on, your ISA profile and let people know this is a success story, but it also says you're doing something right. Like if you send out, and I know it gets expensive, but nonetheless, if you send out your script that's relatively early in the development to 3 different contests and you don't get even to the quarterfinals, you can't be angry about that. We can't be, offended by that. Oh, they had a bad day, or the readers, they did this or that, and blah, blah, blah. The script isn't working yet. That's what it is. And oh, well, they're not judging you. It's the script. And I think that's a huge piece of advice that I want to make sure everybody walks away from. And I need to kind of speed this up a little bit because we're running out of time. But a huge piece of advice, this industry, as long as you're a nice human being, people are going to like you. There's very little judgment on you personally. They're looking at what have you created, what are you capable of, and especially in contests, they're just judging the screenplay. So we can't take things personally, whether it's when we receive notes or if we don't make it into a contest. We have to look at it, objectively. It's the script that needs work. I'm fine. I might need a little bit more education about something, but we always need that. This is a lifelong profession. This is a lifelong endeavor. We're never going to just land at here's as good as I'm going to be. Never, because every single script is going to be different. Some will be a lot easier to write. Some are going to be much more difficult. And so anytime you're having these questions of, should I keep doing this? Am I any good? Or am I going to make any money doing this? Is this a waste of time? Those are viable questions that, you should just be honest with yourself. But at the same time, we can't look at it as this, idea that I'm right now, you may not be good enough, but you can get better. You can improve. As long as we're not putting so much pressure on ourselves in terms of we have to make money doing this. And I know that sounds weird because you're all out here like, how do you get noticed? We want to get noticed so that we can make a career out of this. Of course, we want to be paid for it, but it's going to take time to get there. And so we need to be focusing on education. We need to be focusing on outreach. And that was the main thing that I wanted to touch upon here. Well, I don't know about main, but one of them. The biggest one, yes. So some of you may not like it. I kind of touched on it a little bit, but being social and meeting people is a requirement. I don't care where you live or what you do for a living. We all have some amount of free time in our daily lives. If you're committed to this, to creating a career as a writer, you need to be out and about, going to social events in any artistic form, novel writing, painting, museum events, artist gatherings, and then never be afraid to start chatting people up. I know it's hard. Some of us are not that social. Some of us are, though. And for those of us who may not be all that social, we can learn to do that. We can learn to be social. One of my close friends in Los Angeles, she's been living in LA for a long time. Started as an actress, and she went over and moved into directing, and she's been writing as a professional writer for the past, many years, but full time now for the past 3 years, maybe. Yeah. And she's getting paid good money now. It took her a long time, but the one thing that she is so good at and why she is finding her jobs, because she is not repped, she doesn't have an agent, she doesn't have a manager, is because she is really good at talking people up. She goes out and she just talks to anybody. She just has that way about her. I'm not that way. I can be better at it. Once I get to talking to somebody, I'm like anybody else. But she's always out doing something. If one of her friends is going to an event, she goes to the event with them. She's meeting as many people as possible, and she has gotten all of her own work because of that. Yes, she lives in Los Angeles, so of course there's an advantage. But anytime you're out at some artistic event and you tell them that you're a screenwriter, I guarantee you they're going to be interested. At the very bottom line, they're going to be like, "Oh, tell me about that." I was out meeting with my parents' friends who were all in their late 70s, early 80s. And one of my dad's friends, I didn't even realize that he had executive produced a pretty big movie a few years ago. He was a lawyer and he's written a couple of screenplays. I had no idea. Now, I don't know if Mr. O'Connor is going to help me with my career or something, but this is how we do it, everybody. And I know that this is really, I signed up to spend an hour with Max and he's going to tell me to go meet people. Yeah. You have to go and meet people. Otherwise, you're doing this completely in a vacuum and relying on random lottery contests to get noticed. It's not going to work. Because in a way, like what Will was saying earlier, a lot of producers and people in the industry say, I don't really care about screenplay competitions because some people don't. So, the contest route is not the only way you can do this. You have to be writing blogs. You have to be creating social presence. You have to create a Substack. Substack is a fantastic new social media newsletter service where you can put your writing up there and try to, gain an audience, write short stories, publish them wherever you can. Just Google, where do I publish my stories and books online? Just Google that and you're going to get a list of places where if you can just create little stories. Wattpad is used to be really big and popular. It's still popular, but it's kind of become messy. Nonetheless, there are ways to get your stuff out there. But really, we really do need to be meeting people because, the chances are extremely low, everybody, to find success as a writer, much less if you only write one script or two scripts. I say it almost in every webinar and everybody's like, Jesus, stop being so pessimistic. And that's just the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. But it becomes a lot easier if you're out and about, letting people know who you are, doing everything you can, not being afraid to invest in yourself and your career. Sign up for communities. I have one called the Story Farm Circle Community, and I don't have any way to share a link. All of you can email me, max@thestoryfarm.org. You can sign up for free, and you can take part in the forum there. You can share things like it's your own Facebook page. here's a new contest that I just found out about, or here's a news article, or you could even share, a log line. Does anybody have notes about this? And it's just a way to communicate. It looks much like a Facebook, type of there. Thanks, Scott, the storyfarm.circle.so. You can sign up for free. I offer an upgraded membership for $27 a month, $27.50 actually, and I host live office hours and workshops like logline reviews and pages reviews, and then a pitch workshop, and for $27 a month. And some of us are struggling, so I get it. And you don't have to be there forever, and this is just one example of a way to be a part of something, whether it's my community or anybody else. The ISA is going to be launching their own platform on Circle as well, and connecting it to the ISA website. It's going to be a really big deal and fun. So Marion is saying, love the advice, Max. Thank you. Whenever I do a webinar that isn't, strictly educationally oriented, which I don't do many, I always worry a little bit because I don't want to piss anybody off. This is difficult, what we're trying to do, and that's just the reality. But as long as you remind yourself every day, I actually enjoy doing it. This is fun, creating something. You'll be fine. We just have to play the long game. We have to play the long game. All right, we have a lot of questions. Let's get into some of these here. I may not be able to get to all of them, everyone. I'm going to kind of just scroll up and down here and do random. Okay, Matt is saying, I've got a manager who has 30 plus other clients, and I feel like my stuff isn't being shown the proper attention. Is this a normal feeling? Plus, is this a normal amount of clients for managers to have? I will say 30 plus is a pretty good number of clients. It's not a lot, but it's a pretty high number. So I'm not too surprised that the manager, especially in this industry climate, Matt, and please don't read into this, is focusing on the clients that are making him or her money, because the manager is probably struggling financially too. I don't know who this manager is, and I'm assuming things, but that's probably what's happening. So that being said, if you're not getting phone calls returned, if you're not getting emails returned, if you're giving them material and they're not reading it, one side is, yeah, that's shitty. They should be getting back to you. On the other side, how often are you reaching out? And then what are you doing for your own career to help make your manager's job a little easier? That's a tough one to ask sometimes. And Matt, I don't know how long you've been repped and how much experience you have, so I'm not saying this directly to you, but as an example, the idea, you hear this all the time. If the manager makes 10% of what you earn, you should be doing 90% of the work. Just because you are repped does not mean career's off and running. They handle working folks, so I understand completely. Yeah. But just because you find a rep does not mean everything's great now. You technically means you have more work to do, because the manager is also expecting you in some ways to work for you, or for her or him. Yes, your representative works for you. At the same time, this is not like an employee. They only make money if you make money. So anyway, Matt, I think we're kind of on the same page. I think an email to your manager, and a very nice, polite email, and just say, hey, I noticed that I haven't heard back on certain things. I'd love to just have a back and forth, either via email or a quick phone call, just to kind of get a little update. I know everything is crazy right now. He or she should be able to reach out, and you can have a conversation about it. What you can't do is say directly, I don't feel like I'm getting enough attention, because that's going to be a little bit of an attack. Come at it instead from a place of, what can I do to help here? What can I do? What do you suggest I do to make your job a little bit easier, and to maybe bring in some work? Have you heard of any events coming up that I can go to and attend? Try to work with the manager instead of just expect them to do everything, because especially when they have 30 plus clients, they're managing and juggling a lot. It's great that you have a manager, but look at my friend in Los Angeles right now. She's gotten all of her work, which has been a lot. She's attached to at least 3 different projects right now that are funded and they're going to get made. And she's been paid for this work. And she's getting all the jobs herself. Like she's actually told me, like, why would I get an agent? I'm getting all my own work. I don't have to pay 10%, you know? Okay, let's see. I always have long answers to questions, everybody, and I apologize if I don't agree if I don't answer your question. Let's see what we got here. Your protocol, kind of down near the bottom of the list here. I'm going to go with Max. I met you in 2015 at a script pipeline event for finalists, and I'm grateful for that because you introduced me to the ISA. Oh, thank you. I'm assuming your name is not your protocol, but that's great. You know, we go to events and we meet people, and somehow, you know, I nudged you toward going to the. Well, I was probably working for the ISA at the time. Congratulations for being a finalist, by the way. Lindahl, Michael, how to select competitions based on notable readers, or is that a valid concern? It's definitely valid. The tricky part is most contests won't necessarily reveal who their readers are. If they do, I think that's cool. I think what they might be referencing is, you know, who are the finalists' readers, who are the people that are going to be your mentors, or who are the people that are judging the final round or something. I think it's valid to look at those contests in a way where, wow, you know, these people are going to be taking a look at the script from a judging standpoint, but it doesn't necessarily mean other contests with readers who are not of, you know, some form of an executive level are any worse. I mean, you know, because I in a lot of ways can only speak for the ISA contest, and the ISA, you know, they produce and manage a lot of them. Our readers are really good, and we have a team managed by a particular person who is constantly checking their work. He's rereading it. What do the notes say? Does this sound, you know, professional? Are you writing this properly? Are you being positive while also, you know, offering constructive criticism? We spend so much time and probably way too much money trying to make sure our readers are really valuable and educated and smart and all that stuff. Because a huge part of the ISA's business is about those contests. And we want people to feel like they're getting what they pay for, you know. At the same time, most of the time, writers are paying $50, you know, for notes, or even like, you know, give me review on first 20 pages or something. There should be a level of expectation in some ways for you get what you pay for. And I know people don't like hearing that, but it's kind of true. Nonetheless, I lost my train of thought. How to say, or is it valid? It's a valid concern, Lindahl. I think we should be submitting a contest that we feel comfortable submitting to. Do your research, Google them, try to find reviews, and, you know, try to schedule out which contests and competitions and fellowships am I going to be applying to this year. Let's create a calendar for myself. Here's how much I can afford. I'm not going to go crazy. You know, these contests offer these notes. Here's the regular deadline versus the final deadline. Plan this, everybody. You know, take it seriously. Mike is asking, Mike Wilczynski, can you cite any recognizable successes who worked with the Story Farm? They're recognizable to me. Most of the writers I've worked with the Story Farm are relatively new or, you know, medium level writers. And so they're coming to me to begin that process in terms of not only learning how to write, but also further develop. Most of the writers I have currently with the Story Farm have been with me for about 4 or 5 years. They've stuck around, not only because of the family and community they've created, but they like me. On top of that, almost all of my writers currently have won some form of a competition. I have one writer who has writing assignments on 2 projects right now, and he's getting paid for those. The tricky part with success stories, you know, like recognizable successes with any organization. This is not just me. It's H32, ISA, Blacklist, whatever. I am only so responsible for those people's success. I didn't necessarily directly develop a script for and with this writer that then got produced. I'm informing them on how to develop their craft and their ability and their education. And yes, I'm giving them direct notes on their scripts, but it's up to the writer to get that success. I've just started posting success stories on my website, mainly because a lot of them are talking about the retreats, and I want people to know what the retreats are like, because I'm kind of shifting into a retreat service as sort of. I mean, I'm slowly getting there. I'm going to be hosting 4 retreats next year. But so it's always tricky for me to share success stories. I've worked with A-list writers that I don't want to name, and I know some of you are going to be like, oh, well, then he didn't do it. A-list actors, and I've helped them develop projects, but does that mean their success is my success? Not really. You know, it's a great question though, Mike. So I'm not trying to kind of poo-poo the question, because you should be wondering those things. You know, who are these people that I might hire to work with me? You should be doing that research and, you know, being smart with where you're placing your investments. Let's see here. Your protocol is saying, I just got notes back from the dev slate on 2 scripts. They were the most actionable notes I've gotten in 10 years. Wow, that's saying something. That's really great. I'm glad that happened. Will is asking, he asked this early on, Max, is 5 scripts too few, 10, 20? Is there a magic number? There's no real magic number. I would say at least 3, at least minimum 3. There are some writers out there who nail it with their first screenplay, and they're a genius, you know, and they're gifted. It's such a tiny percentage. And the main reason is because we improve with every script that we write. Lynn, one of the writer that I mentioned before, who got a semifinalist in Nickel, you know, her writing has just expanded so much over the past few years. And it's not just because of me. It's because she's been spending the time. She's been reading a lot of scripts. She's been reading a lot of our other Story Farm writers' projects and giving them notes. And she's been noticing some of the issues in their scripts in her own screenplays, and then improving and working through, you know, so it's not just about, I need to have this number of screenplays for a marketing reason or a business reason, even though I would say a manager probably won't take you on if you haven't written more than 2 screenplays, unless they manage just the 1 script because the script is so phenomenal. There are always caveats, but it's about improvement. You know, if you've worked through 20 screenplays, that means you've been working on your craft and educating yourself and improving little by little. And just becoming more comfortable with the process. You know, the more often you work out physically, the easier it is to work out. It just becomes more second nature. And so the whole process of the development, you know, the concept and the character development and the structure and the beats and the scene work and the literal scene directions and all these things, the more you do it, the more comfortable you are going to be with how you do it yourself, as opposed to worrying about what everybody else is doing. Am I doing it right? Because that person did it that way, but I'm doing it this way. Is that right or wrong? After a while, you won't be asking those questions because you just feel comfortable. And the readers notice this. You know, the reader reading a script will feel like, I'm in good hands with this person. The cheapest way to grow your screenwriting career is to just read screenplays. I told my writers this last night in my writers group. And in the workshop that I had, I said, you know, I could blow up my business and completely bankrupt myself if I just told everybody, go to the ISA script library. We just launched it a couple months ago. Download as many scripts as you can. Read screenplays. I don't know how people aren't doing that more often. It's insane to me. Like Stephen King is famous for saying, if you want to be a writer and you're not writing or reading, then you're not a writer. How are we going to, like any other profession goes through training process, and they have to learn how to do it, and then they have to apply it, and then more and more and more. And as they grow through their career, they get better at it. And so I know I'm sounding like, you know, I'm being kind of snarky and cynical and everything, everybody, but I've been doing this for almost 20 years, working with writers one-on-one in this specific capacity, hosting live classes, hosting live events, hosting workshops, reading screenplays, giving notes, and developing my own stuff, pitching to studios from production companies. It's mind-blowing to me sometimes when I hear that, you know, if you are trying to do this and here are some steps that you're just not taking. To me, anyway, it's common sense stuff, you know? So I could say, don't hire any consultant, don't, you know, go to any class or workshop or anything, and just read screenplays. And honestly, guys, you probably could. You could probably do that. If you don't want to spend any money on anything, it's free to go to the ISA script library. The ISA's YouTube channel, I don't know how many videos are up there. Scott would be able to tell us. He could post it in a comment. Hundreds upon hundreds of free content. I don't think we spend enough time. I almost said money, enough time educating ourselves. I just don't think we do. And I'm saying we, like I'm including myself. There are a lot of things in my life that I want to improve, and I'm not yet doing enough to improve. Like reading books about personal growth or better diets or, spirituality or whatever it might be. I think about it all the time, and yet I'm not taking enough steps to improve. I'm doing better little by little. Started doing yoga. I've been doing it every morning for the past 5 days. And honestly, after 5 days, everybody, I don't know how I haven't been doing yoga before. Life-changing. And I mean that, literally life-changing. And this has been like low grade, less than intermediate level yoga stuff, because I've never really done it before, and I have no flexibility in my body. I've thought, like, God, we should start a YouTube channel just for yoga for writers. We all need to be doing this more often. I have not been paying attention to the comments, everybody, but I love how active the room has been. All of your questions. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but we're at the hour mark. I have calls with writers that I have to get to and prep for, but I'm going to be doing a lot more of these, especially through my Story Farm community. You can go to thestoryfarm.circle.so or just email me, max@thestoryfarm.org, O-R-G. Or you can wait a little bit, and you can wait for the ISA to launch their own circle. What's cool is that circle has, when you log in whatever community you're a part of, you'll see a list of the communities you're a part of in the upper left. And so when you're a part of the ISA community and you happen to also be a part of the Story Farm community, you can really easily flip between both. So anyway, there are a lot of opportunities out there, everybody. Search for them, try to find them. The best piece of advice, and hopefully this isn't a downer, is to just be social. Go and talk to people. Tell people what you're doing. Be an active participant in your own life and career. As cheesy and esoteric as that might sound, Isabella saying, "You've calmed my anxieties about being so far removed from the industry at the moment. Keep on writing, folks. Patience, patience, patience. Good luck to you all." Thank you, Isabella. It's a perfect way to end this, and I'm so happy that I was able to help you calm your anxieties. We all have a lot of anxiety right now. We're less than 2 weeks from probably the biggest election in our country's history. Regardless of where you're voting or how, it's a lot of anxiety. So I think we all need to just take a breath, do some yoga. It's 25 minutes in the morning, everybody. We have the time, and just kind of take some breaths. Everything's going to be fine as long as we just do one step at a time. I'll be back on likely next month. Not sure what date because of the Thursday or the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, but we'll let everybody know, and I'll have at least one more at the end by the end of this year, and then we'll jump into January, and I'll probably be hosting another 30-day challenge once we get into the new year. But all right, everyone, I'll see you all soon. Keep working hard.